This is a 2026 Honda Civic EHEV. It's the only one available now in the UK, and it's a full self-charging hybrid which achieves over 50 MPG very easily, very smooth drivetrain, but retains the Civic's sporty driving dynamics. I think this is actually a really good option if you're in the market for something that feels a little bit more like a traditional car, not too much of a tech fest, but still has everything that you need in a good package. This, I think, actually makes still quite a good buy. But with loads of competitors coming in now and things like the Ford Focus disappearing, is this still something that you should consider in 2026, or is it looking a little bit old-fashioned? That's what I'm here to find out today, but I personally think this is actually a really good buy and I really like it, spoiler alert. So join me on a full tour of the car. I'll take you through interior, exterior and get out on the road to see what I think. But before we do that, if you're looking to purchase a used car, make sure that you check out Vehicle Score, because they are going to make sure that you don't come across any duds, any lemons. Vehicle Score makes it super easy to see all the vehicle's data in one place, such as the mileage history, MOT history, and they score it out of 1,000 to make it super easy to see whether you're getting a good deal or not. So when you're buying a used car, you also want to make sure that you run a full HPI check to make sure it's never been written off, stolen, or have any other weird instances of crash reports and that kind of thing. And Vehicle Score make it super easy to see that. You can use my discount code danlat10 to get 10% off as well, and they'll make it super easy for you to see if the car has ever been in any shady accidents or has any online damage reports. I think with my discount it works out less than £12 to buy a full check on the car. That's a very small price to pay to avoid getting a dodgy motor. And if you're looking to buy or sell a used car as well, I do have affiliate links in the description below to make that super easy for you. So whether you're buying, selling, whatever, we've got you covered. Check out the links in the description below. So then, the 2026 Civic. So this is a facelift of the 11th generation model, but now it's only available in the UK at least with the self-charging hybrid, which is the EHEV, which is a 2-litre petrol electric drivetrain. So it's the iMMD petrol hybrid, 181-ish horsepower, and it uses an eCVT transmission, but it's not like old school CVT transmissions that are quite troublesome. These are more reliable, and also it kind of simulates gear changes to keep the car in the right power band, so you wouldn't really notice, but it definitely makes it a lot smoother to drive, very similar to the Toyota hybrids. It's just a bit of a better implementation, I think, than what Toyota do. It's not quite as efficient as Toyota's offerings, but I've been achieving easily 55 MPG. It's quoted between 56 and 60, so I think those figures are relatively accurate. I've just been driving how I normally would. It's front-wheel drive only, but it handles really well. Very typical of a Civic, and we'll explore that more when we get it out on the road. Top speed of about 112 and 0 to 60 in around 7.8 seconds. What I do like as well is trims are easy to choose from. So it starts from around £34,000 for the Elegance trim, which has a really good safety suite as standard, adaptive cruise and lane keep assist, heated front seats and steering wheel, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which are wireless, 9-inch touchscreen, digital driver's display, dual zone climate, front and rear sensors, keyless entry, reverse camera. The list goes on. It's actually really well equipped for a base model. Most rivals will also charge extra for heated seats and steering wheel. Premium paint adds around £700, which you can see on this particular car here. And there is also Premium Plus paint for about £1,000. The next model up is the Sport at around £36,000, and that just basically adds larger 18-inch alloys with black exterior styling, sports interior trim and some cosmetic upgrades. But mechanically it's exactly the same. And then the advanced model is the one I have here, which also adds pan roof, Bose premium surround system, leather upholstery, adaptive LED lights, wireless phone charging and some enhanced interior materials. I wouldn't necessarily say it's worth going for though. Those extras are nice, but they're not essential to the experience, and that puts it over 39 grand. I think probably the Sport is the sweet spot really, because it still looks the part and has all the entry-level kit, but none of the crazy luxury extras that this one has. In terms of rivals, I'd say the Corolla hybrid is probably a main one. It's going to be slightly more efficient, slightly larger, especially the touring variant. You're going to have much more to go on there. You've also got things like the Mazda 3, which is a nice car to drive. You've also got stuff like the Volkswagen Golf e-hybrid. But yeah, not too many rivals now. The Ford Focus is gone, and they were only mild hybrids anyway. Yeah, there's just not really much out there. They're all switching over to SUVs, aren't they? So that's what I was saying earlier. It just makes sense if you want something a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact, but you still want a really high quality experience and a nice car to drive. This is actually really good, and I'm really growing fond of it during my time with the car. So Honda give you a 5-year service activated warranty, but the standard is 3 years with 90,000 miles, and there is also an 8-year warranty on the battery as well. So of course, not having a plug-in option, you don't get any of those tax benefits, and also it's not going to have any all-electric range. However, it will drive on all-electric for a very brief period of time around town when you're kind of between lights and stuff like that and pulling away, which gives you a nice bit of extra torque. And yeah, in terms of styling, I really like this car, especially the front end. I think the front end design is really, really nice. You can see here we've got these LED headlights, which are quite striking, really sporty front end nose, and this is like the sports trim basically. So you've got the honeycomb. There's also a kind of perforation in there for where the air filter is, and you can see we've got the sensors down the bottom. We've also got a little air vent area. I don't think those are functional, annoyingly, but they do add to the design nicely, and I do just think that this really does look the part of this car. It's just got such a nice kind of pointed front end nose. Also, the washer jets are built into the wipers, which is a cool design. Down the side, you can see we've got the sports alloys. These are actually fitted with Michelin Pilot Sport 4s from factory as well, which is quite good. And you can see that there is some attention to detail there when it comes to the performance elements. And then as we head down the side of the car, the only bit that I don't really like is the rear hatch shape, but it does make the car more practical. I prefer this in more of like an Accord Saloon variant, I would say, in terms of styling. Also, the back is where it's starting to look a little bit more dated. So you can see, although we have some nice kind of diffused LED rear running lights, you can see that the indicators and the reverse lights are the more standard sort of halogen style, if you like. They're probably, I don't know whether they're normal bulbs or LEDs, but inside they do just look like standard bulbs. They don't look anything modern at all, so that is the one downside. Down the bottom, we don't have any trickery either with the diffuser. There's kind of these little cutout areas, but they're not made to look like exhaust, which I do appreciate. The exhaust is actually tucked away. It's a shame though, because it would be nice to see some kind of spicier exhaust on these. Obviously this isn't like a Type R or anything, but it still would be nice to see that. You've got the EHEV branding there, and yeah, I just think it's quite a nice practical kind of shape, but it's not my favorite in terms of the look, but it's very familiar, and I think these wheels and this color definitely set the car off nicely. And yeah, nice side profile, quite a low slung car as well, but not too low. A nice little side skirt area down the bottom there. But yeah, front end design is what really wins it for me. I think just the look of it at the front end, just a really nice, somewhat aggressive, somewhat sporty stance. Looks really modern, really crisp, but also not over the top. So yeah, really props to Honda for the design. I think it is really nice, and the sunroof obviously on this one does add to that as well a little bit, but personally I think this is probably one of the better looking of this class of car. So let's head inside the Civic then. So it is just a touch handle for entry with the keyless entry, and that's standard across the range. And there's a little ribbed area there for the locking system. It does require you to unlock the car twice by default to open all the doors and the boot area, but you can change it in the settings. And then you can see on the door card, we've got a fairly nice sort of host of materials. Up top is kind of squishy pleather. You've got some gloss black, which isn't the best, but it's got some ambient lighting running through it. You've got one of these grab handle style handles with a physical lock that some will appreciate. And then down here, we've also got a kind of squidgy elbow rest area with some padded stitching, which is welcome. And then you've also got some, this isn't carbon fiber at all, it's not even made to look like carbon fiber, but it's kind of got that sort of look to it, the shininess to it. I quite like it. It's just like a scratchy plastic, but I think it looks quite cool. And you've got some nice mechanical switches there. And then you've got a little door pocket area, quite small, and then a water bottle area, which as you can see hosts a bottle quite nicely with the little separator, so I quite like that. And then as we head inside the car, you can see we've got a pretty standard layout, nothing too crazy, but it is quite modern and quite a nice mix of old and new tech, I think. So let's jump in, I'll show you around. So looking around the cabin then, I actually quite like the design in here. It's quite simplistic, but you've got some nice design flares in here, and it is a nice mix, as I said, of old tech and new tech. So it's not going to be too overwhelming for your casual buyer who isn't into the new flashy screens in cars and things like that. On the right hand side here, we've just got an air vent, so it's this nice kind of mesh design, and then like a toggle that you can move around to direct the air, nice and simple to use. And you've got your power button here, your engine start stop, and some dials for, like, you've got the traction control, and you've got the setting for the brightness of the screen. You can see this one is fitted with the Bose audio system, which I don't rate actually. It's not the best. It's fine, but I wouldn't say it's worth paying extra for. Steering wheel is quite nice though. It's got kind of a Toyota feel to it. It does have some nice clicky buttons on here. So you've got volume toggles, you've got track skip, you've also got a dial here to control this portion of the screen. So if I zoom in on that area of the screen, you've got a few bits that you can do on there. So you can have a map if you want to. So you can have that as Apple CarPlay information and things like that. And then the one on the right, you can customize using the dial on the other side. So that one you can cycle through your trip information. You've also got navigation, you've got your cruise control settings, safety information. So there's a few different bits that you can do in there. Nothing too crazy, but it gives you all the information you might need, and it's really easy to use and control, which I like. I like the fonts, I like the layout. It's just, you know, straightforward, gives you what you need in a modern format. The controls also really well damped. Being a Honda, I'm always thoroughly impressed with how they feel. Really nice, high quality. On that side, you just got your windscreen washer and your wipers and that kind of thing. You also got paddles on the back of the steering wheel, and that effectively controls a temporary regen. So when you're going down a hill, for example, you can press this a few times and toggle the amount of regen braking, which will help charge the battery. You can see here we've got a battery charge indicator on the left and then your fuel on the right. So as the car goes downhill and uses the regen, it will charge, so you can use that and then also free it up. It's something you can do on the fly. I would prefer for it to be a bit more like Kia's, and that way it's more of a permanent thing. Introduced specifically for the 2026 model year. In sport mode, the paddles act as a virtual gear shift system, so you can control the fake gears yourself, and it's actually quite a nice sensation. Not the most responsive, but still pretty cool. But it's quite a nice feature to have. I also like that on here you've got the steering wheel heater in the bottom spoke, which is nice. And this is the all important button for me. This is a fantastic feature, available on all Kias and Hyundais as well, and a few other brands, but the implementation here is just as good. You press this button once and the car will start steering itself on the motorway. So it means that you can operate the pedals completely independently. There's no cruise control switched on, but it means that the car will steer for you with your hand on the wheel. So it means that it just takes the fatigue out of long journeys. I really like that personally. I don't like using cruise control that much all the time. I like to be able to control the car, but this just means that it's so much easier and less hassle to drive long distance. Now the middle section, very similar. So we've got these kind of toggles here, nice, fairly high quality switches. You can hear them in action. And then same with these are really nice high quality dials, which I can use to adjust temperature, and it's all appears on these little screens here. Just fan speed. They've then also got buttons internally to turn them on and off and things like that. Everything here is really nice, high quality. It feels like a nice, expensive micro switch to the touch. Feels very similar to like an Audi, for example. I'd say it's up there in terms of that quality. The only thing that's not is like this center console area is a little bit wobbly. There's still some flex on it, but that's the only real downside in here. Even this armrest here, squidgy and nice quality. You've got a little removable tray in there and a nice deep well. Some nicely designed cup holders with little grippers in. The gear change scenario here, I'm not a massive fan of, but it does the trick, right? So D for drive, neutral, pull this one back for reverse, and then park here. So it's a little bit fussy, but it works fine. Drive mode select, so you've got a couple to choose from. So we've got Econ, which is your eco mode. You've got normal, sport, and individual. So I would say there's not a massive difference between them all. The sport mode does sharpen the throttle response and increase the torque of the electric motor, and the eco mode, I guess, tries to use the EV mode a little bit more, but there's not a massive difference between them all. And then you've got your parking brake down here, and down here it's that same material. It looks a little bit like carbon to the untrained eye. It's not even meant to look like that, but it's quite a nice addition, and it's not gloss black, which I appreciate. There is a little bit of gloss black around the dash here, but it's not really on your touch points, so I think it can be forgiven. I don't really mind it. I think it makes it look at least a little bit more modern, and yeah, nice layout overall. In terms of this screen, it is your typical Honda affair, so you've got basic information about your power flow and your trip and that kind of thing in there. Some physical buttons for back and home, vehicle settings and general settings like that. You do have to go in here to turn off like your driver assist stuff, so if you want to stop it from beeping at you when you go over the speed limit, you have to come into this menu. There's no fantastic shortcut for that, so that is an oversight in my opinion. And yeah, this is a fairly old-fashioned system. It's a little bit like Toyota's one, to be honest. It's not anything like all of these new Chinese cars and Tesla and BYD, all that kind of stuff. It's nothing like that. It's very simple, nothing really exciting in here at all, but it just gets the job done. I do like how there's icons for things, so it's a bit easier to understand, and obviously you're just going to go into Apple CarPlay and use that, aren't you? So it's no great deal, to be honest. I think it's fine, and I just use my phone through that system, and I think it's nicely placed as well. It's kind of out of the way, but at the same time it's quite easy to glance at from the driver's perspective. Up the top here, we've got a standard rear view mirror, which is nice. The view out the back is a little bit challenged by the C-pillar, but I wouldn't be too concerned about that. You've also got a sunglasses holder, which is nice. It's also got like a squidgy lining in there, which is good. And then you've also got standard reading lights and also your controls for your roof. So I've got the blind shut at the moment because it's very bright out. And then up here, just your standard, you can see a very sweaty me in the car trying to do this review. Weird that this is a sort of an orange light or a sort of a warmer LED in there, but yeah, I don't really care, to be honest. It is what it is. But yeah, really nice. It's got quite a dark headliner in here, obviously being the sportier trim, but I do like it. I also like these leather seats. So the seats have like a bit of plushness to the front of them, but they're also quite firm and supportive. The driver's one does have electric lumbar adjustment as well on this particular model. They're nothing too crazy, right? Very standard seats, and only the top end trim gets this leather, but it's nice. It's a nice place to sit and spend some time. I think the interior is fairly ergonomic, fairly nice design, and I just really love the quality of all these controls. Stepping into the back of the Civic, and we do have quite wide opening doors, which is going to be quite useful if you're getting child seats in and out and stuff like that. However, there is quite a big lip to get in. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to get your feet over that. There is ample space back here though for most people, and you've got a little door pocket, again the same sort of material in the back here, nothing too crazy. And then back here you do obviously have your ISOFIX points. They're the kind that are hidden behind a leather flap, so you have to like pull this Velcro thing out to get to them, which is a little bit of a faff, and it's a little bit of a faff to put back as well, as you can see. So it doesn't always look neat and tidy, which is a little bit annoying. I just feel like there's a slightly better way to implement this. I prefer the ones that are just kind of got the square bit there to cover them up rather than having this extra flap, but it is what it is, right? Not too bad. What you do have though is a 60/40 split for the rear and some fairly comfortable seats back here, but there is a large transmission tunnel, as you can imagine, being a normal combustion engine car, and there's a lot of flex on this middle center console area as well. This feels the cheapest part of the car. Horrible scratchy plastic, but thankfully 2 USB-C chargers and some ventilation. Nothing too fancy in the way of pockets and storage back here either as well, but gets the job done. So stepping into the back of the Civic, I actually have this in my driving position at 6 foot, and there is really genuinely an impressive amount of space back here. The only concern for me really is the headroom. It is kind of eaten up a little bit by this sunroof area, so the lesser models won't have quite as much of a hump here, and it's only when I lean forward that I start to intrude on that. You can see I'm just about hitting there. Back here isn't too bad, but if you're taller than me, I'm 6 foot, so if you were maybe 6'2", 6'3", I think you'd be in a little bit of trouble. But for the most part, the seating position isn't too bad either. I've got an okay amount of thigh support if I open my legs a little bit, and I've got plenty of room for my knees, even with my driving position in tow. Obviously this isn't an SUV, so the driving position isn't going to be very high, and it's not massively overcrowded in terms of features and luxuries back here, but I do have a pull down armrest which goes down like that, so I can get a nice comfortable position, get a good view of the interior ahead, and of course there is quite a large transmission hump, so I wouldn't really fancy spending lots of time back here. See, look, I'm struggling to even get my feet either side of this. If you had 3 adults back here, you'd be pretty much out of luck, but little kiddies would be absolutely fine. So yeah, nothing too crazy back here in terms of features and comfort, but it gets the job done, and it's bigger than you might think for a car of this size. In terms of the cargo area, it is fairly straightforward to get in. You just got a button under here. It is a manual tailgate across all models, which is just something to consider, but you do end up with quite a large opening. As you can see, it's quite a kind of steep area, so it just gives you a bit of a chance to get stuff in, but obviously taller items are not going to fit back here because of that steep curve. You do have in this one as well a large Civic branded sort of interior mat, which keeps things easy to clean. There is a small underfloor storage area, but nothing too crazy in terms of features. This one has the protector in, and obviously you can see there is a bit of a ramp there as well, and also a lip to get items over to get them in because it's a normal size hatchback. There is 2 load covers as well, so this one is a retractable one. You literally just pull it off and it folds back over here, which gives you access to the whole open space. And then there is also one built into the boot area, which you can just unclip, and this is kind of like it can compress into a lesser material, so you can just get rid of that one if you need to, but it's tucked so far close to the windscreen that I don't think really you'd need to remove it in many instances unless you've got a much larger item. So 60/40 split then, lean in, press that and push that down. Same again on the other side. Press that and push that down. The seats are quite heavy, but they do fold nice and flat. So you can see there is a little bit of a lip to get over, but it does mean that it's quite easy to pass things through, unlike in some cars of this kind of hatchback type where you'd have a large lip there where the seats are. So it's kind of, they've made the best of the space really and what they can do with it, and it does give you quite a large opening, as you can see, but it's just how practical that opening is. However, you will notice that obviously it does become a little bit steep as we go in there. So if I come around to the side of the car, I'll show you what it looks like from the inside as we lean in. So you can see there is a little bit of a steep incline there. Nothing too crazy though. And another bonus is that the seat belts are kind of on these runners at the side. So if I want to just lean in here and put this up with one hand, it is nice and easy to do so. And I can do the other side even from here, which means that it is really easy to operate. Some cars, the seatbelts snag and it's really horrible to use, so props to Honda for making that really easy as a one-handed operation when you're juggling, you know, shopping, children, all that kind of stuff. And back here, like I said, it's quite nice, it's quite practical. There's no real extra features. This one has the Bose audio subwoofer built in, and you can see we've got a 180 watt socket there, but nothing too crazy. These aren't shopping hooks, these are designed for the load cover that springs out here, so there's not really anything major in the way of features here, but there's enough to get you by, and I think for a lot of people this is going to be a fairly practical space. It's more space than in some of the rival cars. It's just whether this impracticality of this shape is going to be bothersome for you. Personally, I wouldn't really consider it so. I would say that this is a large boot for its class. So then, with all that said and done, I think it's time to get the Honda out on the road, because that's where it really excels. I think it's not only a great handling car, but also a very efficient one as well. Let's jump in and hit the road. So out in the Civic, and what I will tell you immediately is that around town this is a nice and serene experience, because what's going to happen is it's going to try and utilize the electric power as much as it can, which means that you do get a little sense of torque off the line. Means it's nice and crisp and quiet, just feels generally quite refined, even in comparison to something like a Toyota, which generally is a little bit smoother, known as the smoothest hybrids on the market. This still feels pretty good in comparison to those. I'd say it's definitely up there. Of course, being a self-charging hybrid, the engine does kick in quite a bit, but it's not particularly gruff when it does, and it actually sounds all right. Really nice turning, really sharp, and as you floor the throttle, you get a decent amount of torque, and it doesn't shout too much about it. Even when you pin it, it sounds like it's changing gears, so that obviously makes a difference. So let's take a roundabout hard. God, you can hear the tyres letting go. But there's no understeer, it just stays in it. It's really, really impressive how much this car grips, and the turning is so sharp in comparison to some other rivals. It's super refreshing to drive, and yeah, I'm just astounded by how the front wheel drive responds in most situations. You can tell why the Civic was one of the sort of top performance cars. The Civic Type R for a long time was the Nürburgring record holder for front wheel drive cars, and only recently beaten by the Golf GTI Edition 50, and you can tell why. The underpinnings of the car based on this are fantastic, and in traffic it is quite serene. I can use the paddles to bring in this regen effect to help slow me down and charge the battery a little bit, and it means that I have to only touch the brake at the very last second, but then that mode does eventually reset when you put your foot down on the accelerator, so it's not something that you can just leave on permanently. This system looks like it's changing gear. You can tell on the power meter it drops from 100 to about sort of 80 and then back up and then dips again when it sounds like it's changing gear. So it's almost simulating those gear changes in such a way that the car sounds a little bit more normal and less strained. It's also nice that if you're at like sort of 30 miles an hour and you suddenly just plant your foot a little bit, there's quite a lot of electric shove there still as well. If your battery's got enough power, it just manages it quite well, and I've really struggled to get this thing below 50 MPG, believe me. It is super efficient and refined. In terms of sound and comfort in here, there is a bit of road noise. There's not too much wind noise from the pillar, thankfully, but I do get quite a bit of noise from underneath me. And there is a little bit of noise through the windows as well. Some laminated glass wouldn't have gone amiss, but at this price point, you can't complain too much. In terms of the suspension though, it's a nice mix, I think. It's not soft and wallowy by any stretch, but it's also not as firm as I might have expected from a Civic, which is known to be a sportier car. It doesn't kind of crash around over bumps and things like that. It just feels like you'd expect from a sort of modern hatchback. See, away from the light, it's a nice little shove of torque there, more than you'd need, and 180 horsepower doesn't seem like an awful lot from today's standards, but in this setup it really works. Even giving it a bit of beans away from traffic like this, I never really see the power meter go beyond 25-30%, which means that the engine, when it does cut in, it's not making lots of noise. And in many of these low speed scenarios, the car's staying in full EV mode until nearly 20 miles an hour for me. The sport mode does firm this up a little bit, and it does also engage the engine a little bit more frequently, and also increase the throttle response of the electric torque. Did you hear those gear changes? Yeah, it does make it better. I can now press the one-touch steering assist button, and the car is now steering for me in this lane. I'm controlling the pedals, but the car is doing all of the hard work, so it means that I don't really have to concentrate quite as much, which means that it just takes the fatigue out of a really long drive. You don't realise how tiring driving is just because of all the little tiny adjustments you've got to make concentrating on staying in lane on a long motorway run. Whereas this, I'm just focusing on not hitting anything. And that's it, really. I don't need to worry about the rest of it. The car does that for me. It's just a really great feature, really underrated. Another thing I am truly impressed with is the brakes. Now, on hybrids, the brakes are normally spongy and horrible, but on this, if I give them a real stamp, I get a lot of response out of them. Pedal feel isn't the best, but it does just stop. You know, I don't get that same sort of spongy feeling. There's none of that kind of it bottoming out and going crunchy under my foot. It just kind of feels like it does exactly what you want it to. And it's a lot sharper than you might imagine for a self-charging hybrid car. It's much more kind of sharp and direct as well than some of its key rivals, and it makes a lot of these kind of new Chinese brand EVs and SUVs and that kind of thing feel like a bit of a sloppy mess when it comes to handling. This is just so much more agile and sharp, even in this normal hybrid configuration. I can only imagine that the comparison is night and day between this and a Type R, but this chassis still does wonders. But of course, if that's the sort of car that you're looking for, your JQs, Amodas, Geelys, all that kind of stuff, they offer for this sort of money a much more luxury car type experience, a large SUV with lots of tech and massive screens and that kind of thing. So if that's your thing, then maybe that's what you're after. But if you're watching this video, then chances are you're kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum and you're not really into all of the new gadgets and gizmos. You just want something that feels good to drive and you know is going to stand the test of time. And I think this is really a good place to put your money if that's the case. I wish it was a little bit more refined in terms of cabin sound, and I wish there was a little bit more space for rear passengers. But aside from that, it's super smooth around town, super lovely to use on a motorway cruise, and also has a little bit of a dynamic flair to it. So it's really quite a complete package, isn't it? Try and get it to break loose, but the front wheel drive just grips and grips and grips infinitely, absolutely infinitely. And it handles so well for this type of car, and it is just a joy to maneuver as well. Such a decent turning circle for this kind of car, and then away, a little bit of electric shove, and not really any torque steer or drama. It just grips, goes, happy days, and you get that front wheel drive engagement. Very, very, very good bit of kit. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's just a really likeable car. This isn't my sort of thing now, really. I do like all the crazy tech and the more kind of powerful hybrid drivetrains and things like that, and I love driving EVs day to day. But this I've grown super fond of in my time with the car. I've had it for about a week now, and I absolutely adore it, and that's quite unusual for me. I'm normally quite happy to give a press car back and just jump back in whatever I'm driving the following week, but this one I'm actually a bit gutted to get rid of. And I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a really complete package. So there we go, guys. Thank you so much to Honda for sending me out the car. Thank to you guys for watching. And please do like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It goes such a long way. If you want to see reviews of the rival cars, please do check them out on the channel. I really do appreciate all the support. And obviously links in the description below if you are looking to purchase any used cars. So for now, from me, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.